Welcome to Carefree and Conscious, paranormal and profound authors with stunning true stories. If you like this type of content, be sure to subscribe. I'm your host, Susanne Wilson, the Carefree Medium and Intuition Educator. Today on Carefree and Conscious, signs from spirit loved ones, you can get them too, with Lisa Laniewski. Lisa is a lifelong educator and counselor who has taught special needs children and adults in both classroom and residential settings. She's a certified grief educator and a volunteer with Helping Parents Heal. Her new book, God Winks and Amber Waves, A Mother's Transformative Journey Through Grief, Love, and Purpose, chronicles her search for evidence of life after the physical death of her daughter, Amber. You may recognize Lisa from episode 19, when my guest was Sonia Rinaldi, researcher in instrumental transcommunication. Lisa worked closely with Sonia for many years, and now she's embarked upon her own work, already writing her second book. Find out about that and how you can get signs from your loved ones in spirit now on Carefree and Conscious with Lisa Laniewski. Lisa Laniewski, welcome to Carefree and Conscious.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Susanne.
It's amazing. I had no idea that you were writing this book, and I read it yesterday and today, and it's so exciting because Carefree and Conscious listeners, this is right up your alley. Amazing signs from spirit, love that continues beyond any physical separation. And we have a first-time author. Lisa's book is called God Winks and Amber Waves, A Mother's Transformative Journey Through Grief, Love, and Purpose. Lisa, I'm so glad that you're here. In the intro, I showed a couple of pictures in the cover of your book, but I think what really comes through is people hearing your voice and the sparkle that you have because you have so much joy. How is it possible to have this much joy with having your daughter on the other side of life? What do you think is the secret sauce?
I honestly think that the secret sauce is time, work, and just, knowing, just going from that place of believing that something is possible to having so many unexplained things happen, so many requests being answered, not always in the way that I asked for them to be answered, but knowing that the answer did not come from me. And I just know now, I know that she is in a wonderful place. I know that I'm going to be in that wonderful place with her. But at the same time, I don't have to wait because she's also here with me all the time.
And we mentioned Amber in the introduction, but tell us how you decided on the title for the book.
So I was never, ever going to write a book. I've been told for the last decade, so many things happen, and you're such a good speaker. You need to write all this down. You need to write a book. And I'd never intended to write a book. It was always my belief that what could I say that would be different that's different from what's already out there. I didn't want to have to, reinvent a wheel or tell the same story. And a friend said to me, well, first of all, you've already written it. It's just not on paper yet, but you have already written it. And people have heard lots of stories, but they haven't heard your story. And what if your story just touches one person? So I started to think about it. And I just got to the point earlier this year where, I did have a fear because I didn't want to write her story. I didn't want to talk about her life. That's her story. But then I realized, I have a story too. I have a journey, and it may not resonate with everybody, but it's going to resonate with some people. And I was writing the book at the same time that I was taking David Kessler's 12-week Grief Educator certification. And just being part of that and listening to other people's stories, we have to go into small groups and talking about my experiences. So many people would say to me, like, how do you get this? Like, how are you so well spoken? I've never had anybody die. I've never had anybody in my circle die. Like, how do you talk about this stuff? And I realized this is the time. So I decided to do both at the same time, to write the book and to take the course. And I did both of those things together. And it actually was really therapeutic for me because I realized that for probably the better part of 8 years, I've been searching for what is my contribution. Outside of my old career, out my family has grown. My grandchildren don't live near me. I didn't want to go back into my professions from before. No interest at all anymore. Um, and so I spent almost all of my time volunteering for other people. And I was like, what do I want to do? And then when I started taking the grief course, I realized, oh, this is what I want to do. This is really what I want to do. I want to be able to help people go from that place of just horrible despair to, well, maybe there's a little bit of hope. Maybe I'm not going to suffer like this all the time, because that's what I say, is that you're never going to get over the grief, ever. It's always going to be in relation to how much you loved somebody. That's how long you're going to grieve. But the suffering is what you don't have to do. I know that it's beneficial to other people, but it's also beneficial to me because sometimes I feel like divinely the words are coming to me. And for somebody to write back and say, yesterday all I wanted to do was be with my son on the other side. And today I think I can, make it till tomorrow. And then we'll see where that goes. That's huge. It's huge because we've all felt it, especially if you've lost a child. We've all felt it.
It reminds me of the parable of the starfish. You may not be able to help all the stranded
That's right.
starfishes on the shore, but you helped that one.
You made a difference for that one.
I got to tell you, there's something here too. I think this is coming full circle to what happened about 5 minutes before I got on this Zoom call with you. My phone was about 6 feet away from me. I'm sitting there putting on lipstick, so I have some lips for the YouTube podcast part of this. And all of a sudden, my phone started playing from my playlist, and the song that was selected was the Beatles' Revolution. And it's like, this is a
I love
revolution
it.
of love. And that
Oh, I love it.
is part of probably your soul's purpose is to share with people because you said something a while ago. Oh, there's so many grief books out there. There's so many stories about love beyond the veil, or
Right.
I'm paraphrasing you, of course. What's different about mine? It everybody's unique.
Right.
Everybody has a story, no matter what it is. And yours, you have so many signs from your
Yes.
partner, Amber, and so much
Yeah.
connection. Let's go back to your being a military family. Can
Mhm.
you describe a little bit about Amber's life as a military kid?
Yeah. So she was born when we were over in Germany back in, she was born in 89. We were there. We moved there in 88. And I mean, it was the first, my husband and I were really young, we were like in our early 20s. And it was the first time being so far away and so excited to find out we were going to have this baby. But my husband was gone a lot. I mean, Berlin Wall was still up and all that kind of stuff. I mean, so it was her and me for a lot of our time there. So I mean, we just had such a wonderful, close relationship. She was a really, and I know that we hear this all the time, but she really was. I mean, she was a special kind of person. She really was an old soul. She got along with children and adults. She just fit into both worlds. People thought, wow, she just does everything really early. And a lot of it could have been that we spent so much time together and she didn't have any competition, but I mean, she was just a great, very confident, funny, smart as the day is long. I mean, she had not a problem in the world until she did.
And do you think that her being exposed to other cultures created some curiosity for her in life, or did she come out of the womb that way?
Yeah, she was always very, very curious. Always. She made friends really easily. Like I said, she bonded with teachers really quickly because she had that kind of banter and stuff going on. It really wasn't until she was about 14 years old. And at that time, we were living in Belgium. And we were living at the Supreme Headquarters, Allied Powers Europe. So we were living there with so many different cultures. And I just think that it was not the best time probably for her to be exposed to everything that she was exposed to then. There was a lot of maybe she was a little more sheltered than I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to go back and pinpoint exactly what happened, but I do think that there was just a lot of people that had a lot more freedom than she had at 14 years old.
Yeah, yeah. So
And social media, that's the other thing. Social media was just really starting, well, at least it was for her because that was the first time she had a phone and things like that. And it was just, she was going through her young teenage years looking on social media at people who were only showing the best part of their teenage years. They were just, they were showing their best clothes, their happiest moods, all that kind of stuff. And it was just a really, really difficult time for her. And, that's when her eating disorder started. And it just kind of went downhill from there.
and she was in New York, though, when
Yes. Yeah.
she
Yeah.
left here.
Yep. Yep. She had graduated from college on time. She had done really well. She had a full scholarship to the University of Florida. She did well there. And she had always wanted to go off to New York City. That was her big thing. And when she was a junior in college, she'd been offered the job that she wanted as a buyer for Macy's Corporation. And so there was no talking her out of it. She was going to New York.
Yeah, that's a great job. That job
Yeah.
that's a get.
And
The
she loved it. I mean, that was her thing. She just loved that city life. It was kind of like being inside of a casino. She just all the noises and the smells and yeah. So she really, really loved it there.
And for our listeners, was there any time to say goodbye or any hint that a goodbye might come?
Well, I'll tell you, actually, and some people say that our souls know when
Yeah.
it's time, when we're getting ready to go. And I mean, I've had an experience with somebody else very recently that I definitely believe that. But Amber died on a Saturday night, and Thursday night, she and I were talking. We were watching one of those shows on television. I don't know if it was not American Idol, but it was one of those kinds of things. And I said something to her about that I wanted to be called a Nana instead of a grandma. I wanted to be called a Nana. And she said, now we both know that this body is not going to have any children. So why are you being so cruel to me? And I said, well, I'm not sure where that's coming from, but that was just a hopeful comment. I'm not sure what's going on right now, but you want to talk another time? And that haunted me afterwards. Like I mean, she had plans for the future. Where did that come from? I don't know. But it was really kind of, and then for her to say that I was saying it in a cruel way, like, why am I being cruel? It was interesting.
Do you think
It
it
was
was
really
more of
interesting.
like a statement of some finality about being here in
Yeah,
this dimension? Like
I
this,
do.
yeah, like a
I do.
cruel world, not a
Yeah,
cruel mom, because you're obviously so very, very
yeah,
close.
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's why I said to her, like, well, where's that coming from? Because I mean, she was very rare for her to say anything,
Yeah.
like attacking or anything like that. So that was on Thursday night. On Friday after work, she took a train to see someone that she had just recently met. And she contacted me from the other side and she asked me what I was doing, not from the other side, but from when she got off the train, from when she got off the train. And she asked me what I was doing. And I told her. And I had forgotten that she was doing this after work. So I said, what are you doing? And she said, "Oh, I just got off the train," and where she was. And she said, "But I don't think I want to be here." And I said, "Okay. Well, I know you'll make the right decision. Is everything okay?" And she said, "Yeah, I just don't think I want to be here." And she died there the following day. So,
Oh, that statement. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now, signs start coming quickly and
The
unexpectedly. And I just have to ask because, okay, we're going to talk about birds, we're going to talk about several things, but electronics, was Amber like an engineering like kind of orientation at all?
No,
Because
no,
I feel like they pick when they get to the other side and they'll come through in readings and tell us I'm practicing and I'm learning how to manipulate things and watch for this
right.
and watch for that. And then I'll get an email from my sitter. Oh yeah, that's happening a lot. And or they'll tell me, yes, it's already started, and that's what they do. So they'll choose certain things. She wants to do it all. This is a really
Yeah,
ambitious young woman.
yeah. And I very purposely just chose signs and messages. I went through all of the tablets, the journals that I had kept, um, and I didn't want to labor it, or belabor it. I didn't want to, just fill a book with nothing but signs and messages. I tried to take a little bit of all different kinds of things, things that happened in nature, things that happened in the house, things that happened with electronics, messages that we had gotten, because early on, for the first couple of years, it was so constant that it was completely undeniable. You talked earlier about my husband being military, 20 some years, military officer, always, gone doing his thing. He retired as a lieutenant colonel, just everything was black and white. Of course, his grief was anything but he was one of these that he had to go back to work very quickly because he couldn't stand the silence. He couldn't, it was hard for him to see that level of grief that I was having. But I didn't have to do anything to convince him, because what I didn't include in the book were really any of the very specific signs that he had, that I was only a witness to, but they were very, very specific for him. And so he is, I mean, talk about coming full circle now. He'll just bore the pants off somebody who's not into this. He just won't stop talking about it. And he'll just say, like, whatever you listen, don't believe me till it happens to you. It's just,
Now, will
he's,
you be writing about your husband's signs, or is that something held back, or?
so no, that was not something that was held back. So the God winks is so as I was taking David's course, and I realized that I really, really want to work with people who are in grief. I do that now for helping parents heal. I do that. I have some other friends who do podcasts, who are mediums, and a lot of times if they're working with a mom, and I was going to say a dad, but no, I don't think I've had any dads. It's always a mom, who is really, really struggling. They kind of just like send them my way. And I've been just talk. We start off with emails or whatever, and we do all that kind of stuff. But I realized that if I wanted to help people, I had to have a platform of some kind. I couldn't just, people wouldn't know all of the other things that I've done unless I talk about them. And the funny thing is, I always knew that if I ever did write something, I was going to call it God Winks and Amber Waves. I don't know why. It just, that came to me years ago. And I actually was going to write an article, but I just kind of, I really love the word God Winks. And I certainly couldn't use it because it's not my word. So that's why I used a subject and a verb, God Winks, as opposed to one word, a God wink, which is, a coincidence that's anything but. It's not a coincidence, it's a divine sign. I wanted it to be different from the books that I was reading in those early days. Not better or anything like that, shorter. I wanted it to be shorter because early on for me in my grief mind, if if I only got through, 80 pages of a book and I put it down, I would typically end up getting another book because I'd hear about it. I'd get so excited and I'd want to start reading that one, and I'd read 80 pages of that one. And when I went back to the other one, I couldn't remember what I had read already. even though I had it, dog-eared where I was, but I was just like, I would start reading it again, and it was like I was reading a whole new book. So I'd have to go back and read more. And then I had all these books, and none of them were finished. And it's, not that I don't typically do that, but I said, I'm going to write something that's short and digestible, and I'll expand on it later. But I wanted people who were just really in a bad place, who were looking for some hope, to be able. I didn't want, to introduce a whole lot of topics. I just thought I'll talk about some of these signs. It was very, very difficult early on, but over time, I found hope. Like somebody was asking me about like the model for that, like and I said, it's kind of like an Alcoholics Anonymous model, to be honest. I mean, you don't want to walk into the room and go over, you're not going to get your experience and hope from the other person who's, only a couple of hours clean.
That's
You're
it.
going to go to the person who's talking to somebody else up, a little bit away from you, and they're sharing a story and they're smiling and you're just like, oh my gosh, I want some of that. I need some of that. There's another one in the works right now. And
Yeah.
this one is Amber Waves and Hearts Heal. And what I'm doing is I'm collecting shared stories of other messages and signs and things that people may never write down or may never share with anybody because they don't want anybody to think they're crazy. It may be religious reasons, maybe embarrassment, like, I cannot explain this, but they know that it happened. And there is power in that. And there's healing just in telling it. And these people don't even, I ask anybody who emails, if you don't want me to use your name, I won't. Do you want to make up a name or you want me to make up a name? And some people say, that's fine, you could use my real name. I want my husband to see it, or so that's going to be the next one. And I think that, so these are things that happen to me, and some people may or may not believe that. That's okay. They might still be skeptical, but I'm going to collect these stories from a lot of other people and share that this is not just, this is not just one lady's experience. This is happening everywhere.
Beautiful idea.
Thank you.
This is probably required reading for the newly grieving, and it's not just for people who have a separation from a child.
Right.
It can be any person or pet that you've separated from, and you want to know that you still have a communication that's going on. And it doesn't require going and getting a reading from a
Absolutely.
spiritual medium because it requires some information, some knowledge to know exactly what you're looking for. So let's
Right.
get into exactly what to look for. What do you tell somebody that says, "Oh, I want to be like you. It must be something about you. You're special and it's happening because you're you and I'm me and it's not going to work for me." What do you say to those folks? Because there's a lot of them.
I know. I know. And early on, I was one of those people too. And the last thing that I wanted anybody to tell me was to sit in silence. That angered me. Like, no, when I sit in silence, all I can hear is my guilt mom voice, which is saying, if only you had blah, 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 you should have da, da, da. When she said this, you should have. And I couldn't stand silence. I didn't want silence. The television was always on in the background, not music. I couldn't deal with music, but a television was always on in the background with nothing that would make me think of Amber. Like I could never put on Dateline. That was her favorite show. But, dumb things. I just had to have noise. I couldn't handle the silence. But when I finally, I just sit just for 5 minutes. And I would, sometimes I would put something on, some kind of music or beats or anything like that, and just sit. And it was, I knew early on, I mean, signs came from her the very first day, the very, very first day. And I knew without any doubt because they were things that had never happened to me before. I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew I wasn't making them up. And I knew that we loved each other so much that if there was a way to let me know she was okay, that she would let me know she was okay.
What did she
And
do day one? What did
So
she
the
want?
very okay, so the very first day, so it, we hadn't heard from her for about 24 hours, and I knew that there was something really wrong. I kind of thought it was more of a hospital thing. We were calling all the different hospitals and everything else. But when we finally did find out on Sunday morning that, yes, she had died earlier, um, we were alone, not in our home. We were at my sister-in-law's home. We were taking care of animals. This was in Pennsylvania. And we were standing in her kitchen. And my husband didn't have to tell me she had died. I knew he was on the phone, and I knew just from the way that he was talking to me. And then, he turned and he came, and we were standing in the kitchen by a big window. This is the end of November, and my sister-in-law and brother-in-law had a huge uh, homemade stone wall right outside of their kitchen window. And while we were standing there, my husband started turning and looking out the window. And there was an enormous hawk that had come down, and it landed on the stone wall looking in the kitchen window. That meant nothing to me because I don't know anything about birds, other than, they're beautiful. I would not, first of all, I wouldn't have known it was a hawk. I didn't know anything about it. My husband knew enough that it was such an unusual thing for it to come right down and be looking in the window at us at that time in November, that he took out his phone and he took a picture of it. And I got upset because I thought, like, what's wrong with you? And then he explained to me, he said, that's a red-tailed hawk. Okay. And he said, that doesn't happen. That they don't come down into the yard like that, sitting on a thing and looking in the window. I mean, we still have that picture, and that has been a constant for him. Constant. Like literally to the point where he's had hawks that have come down and swooped right over his head. We go to all different kinds of events, and there's this bird and that bird, and he'll be like, there's the hawk. And it's all the time. So that, I think, really set a tone for him, to watch for things. But he was still he was truly, he was taking the picture because it was such an unusual thing. I don't know that he had the connection at the time, but it's like, that's weird. But the very, very first night, while I was sleeping, three really loud and very distinct, separate knocks. They sounded like they were coming from the ceiling, but on the other side, like maybe from the roof. And it was just, really distinct. Boom, boom. And I was awake, boom. And I was a little freaked out by it at first but I said, I wonder, like, I've never heard that before. And I didn't know anything about death knock. Again, I mean, we haven't had any experience in that world, so somebody might be able to say later on, if this happened 3 months down the road, well, maybe I didn't read anything. And then the next night, I was with my mom and my sister, and I stayed in bed with my mom, and the exact same thing happened again. And I went to wake up my mom on the third one, and then it stopped. And I was just like, I know it. I know that everything's fine. You don't need to do that anymore. And it's never, ever happened again. So it's almost 11 years now. Never happened again.
You had to acknowledge it and say,
Yes.
"Oh, thank you. I know it was you." Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then electronics have been big. I don't want to give away the whole,
Yeah.
but you have so many instances. Is there something you
Yeah.
can share around the electronics?
Oh, so something that's not in the book? Do you want me to share something that's not
Yeah,
in the book?
yeah, that would be
Uh,
fun. An exclusive here.
an
Woohoo!
exclusive here that's not in the book. Uh, okay, I'm trying right now to make sure that I remember which ones are in the book. You'll have to tell me. I do remember my husband and I we were driving down to, I think it's New Hampshire, because we were in Maine at the time. We were driving the following day down to New Hampshire to, to see two mediums that were together in a gallery reading, and my husband had never seen either one of them. And I was so nervous that something was going to happen and we weren't going to be able to make it to this. I mean, we're talking just like 3 hours away. It wasn't a big deal or anything, but I wanted to go so badly. And I kept saying to him, are you sure that you set your phone? Did you set your alarm on your phone? Yes, yep, I set my alarm. I said, okay, mine is set too. I said, what if something happened? Like, okay, maybe I should set the clock radio. No, don't set the clock radio. That thing never works, blah, blah, blah. And here it was, maybe like 5 o'clock in the morning, and the smoke alarm in our bedroom started going off. And none of the other smoke alarms in the house were going off. So my husband jumped up, and he's checking it out. He's like, "Oh my God, how do we stop these things?" So I said, "Get a chair and you could do the little thing." He went around and checked. I mean, everything was fine. Everything was fine, but we needed to get up. We needed to be down on a Saturday. I think it might maybe started at 11 a.m. or noon or something like that. But that darn thing, I mean, it's never happened. It didn't happen before. It hasn't. None of our smoke alarms have gone off unless I burned something in the oven. Like
But you
it's just
you really
never.
had to get up early. I mean, you
We
really had to get
really
up
had to get
early.
up early that day. We really, not that early. We didn't have to get up that early. We probably still had another 2 hours to sleep, but it was just one of those things where, my mind was on it the whole time. I'm so afraid. It's like kind of before you take a flight sometimes, and it's early and you have to get up earlier than usual and you can't go to sleep because you're thinking about it. So it was one of those scenarios, but lots of things with radios, lots of things with television. Um, oh gosh, I mean, lots of electronics and lots of things on the computer that had happened. I worked with Sonia Rinaldi for a long time. Lots of images, lots of images. And it's so, and a lot of Amber's images were so unique. I have, I have a video of her blinking her eyes. I have a video of her pursing her lips and kissing at me like
Oh,
that. And the only image that Sonia has ever received, with one teardrop, but a big smile on her face, but one teardrop that was so distinct. And when I saw the teardrop, I was like, oh my gosh. And she said, look at her face. You could see all of her teeth. And I had one experience, of actually seeing her and being with her on the other side, where it was the same kind of thing. It was, and I think about the two of us too, we would laugh so hard that we would cry.
oh,
And so that was I mean, because she was really, really funny and witty. And once we started, we couldn't stop. It was one of those snot fests, where you're
yeah.
crying. And so I was like, wow. But she had never seen anything. She had never seen anything with a teardrop before. So I thought that was kind of cool.
That's, these are the things that take your breath away. And some people will hear this and say, I never get anything like this. Well, listen to the advice here. It's about really getting yourself still and open, and then
Mhm.
being very observant and allowing things to unfold. Like the very first time that your husband saw a red-tailed hawk, he didn't say, I know this is from my daughter, but he said, this is
Right.
so different. I'm going to start to pay attention to this. And he snapped a picture. And then as it started unfolding and they started coming and they're coming for him, those hawks are coming for him,
Yeah.
they're right at his
Mhm.
head. Then he
Yeah.
allowed himself to accept that not only was this a possibility, but he could say back, oh, this is great. Thank you. I know it was you. I love you. And you could say, can you do it again sometime?
Yes. Yeah.
That being
And
observant is so important, and the gratitude helps you get more.
that's a really good point, because one of the things that I stopped doing, and I never really did it too much anyway, um, but when I first learned about mediums, I did think I'm going to go to mediums until she talks about this one thing. Once she talks about this one thing and says this one word, then I'm going to know that it's really her. Now I knew it was really her. I knew it, but I still, it was really more of a test for the medium than it was for her. That I wanted this, couple little words to come out of a medium's mouth and say, she just told me. But what I stopped asking for very specifics, and I would always just, uh, tell her that I'm so grateful that she's with me all the time, that I know she's with me all the time. I'm grateful that she's well now, because I'll be 100% honest with you. Everybody would want their loved one to be back. If my daughter had to be back in the level of pain that she was in, then I'm glad she's in a better place.
Amen.
It took me a long time to really to say that and to truly believe it. But, when you love someone that much, you don't want them to suffer. And if you can't help to alleviate that suffering, and I mean, that I know she was there before she came to me. And I know where she's back to. I know we will be together again. It's not even a hope. I know we will be. I've seen it. I know where it is. I know what, or at least I know what she wanted me to see. And I also truly believe this was another great thing from working with Sonia for so long, because I could never quite understand the whole, what do you mean they don't have space and time? Like, what does that mean? Of course, like everything is time, I mean, I couldn't comprehend what is it like to be in a space that's not a space with a time that's not a time. I couldn't comprehend it. But from listening to so many like direct voice tapes and things like that, it really, it's not our time. It's I'm the one suffering. She's not suffering where she is. I know that she's not suffering. And the things that she has come through in mediumship readings and in messages show anything but someone who's suffering.
Well, let
Um,
me ask you, did you ever get that one thing you really wanted to hear?
um, so kind of.
Okay.
Um, okay, I'll tell you a story. This is not in my book. So I was at an event. This was in 2019, I think, in Orlando, Florida. And there were many different mediums there, and it was a 1 week course and all kinds of things. I was learning great stuff. And there was a spirit artist that was there that I never heard of before. And I really didn't know much about spirit art at that time, but I follow Sandy Ingham and things like that. And so I knew that there were people, but I'd never seen this gentleman before. And he was working with an evidential medium, and they were, so the evidential medium was giving all this information. And I thought, wow, that really sounds like Amber a lot. But there was another mom, kind of felt the same way. And then this guy started drawing uh, the young woman, and she had dark hair, and it was curly, and my daughter had very curly hair that she typically straightened, but she had naturally curly hair. And they finally got it down that it was me. And he said, okay, this is a little weird. This has never happened to me before, but she's asking if you will come up here and brush her hair. That was it. Because in my bag, I had her round brush with all her hair still in it, wrapped in a thing, with hair ties closing it up. And I was like, oh my God. And I took that brush out and I said, this is what I've been waiting for.
Oh,
Because
wow.
her hair was such an
Got it.
issue for her. And everybody was like, what?
Yeah,
And
they don't
even
know. And medium doesn't know how relevant it is.
And even my roommate did not know that
Oh,
I thought, I will not tell this to anyone, because
no,
that's going to be my way,
right.
of knowing. I thought maybe she would reference her hair in some way, shape, or form, because that was always an issue. Um,
Well, let's pause here because this is really important for people to get. It was after you let go of the need to hear that one thing to
that's
know
right.
it was real that it finally, the communication could be a flow in ease. And here's
Hmm.
what I tell people. If you have to hear one certain thing, you may or you may not get it. I've gotten the secret password, the code word, the I know what's in your back pocket thing that nobody could possibly know many times. I've also missed it a lot, I'm sure. And here's
Okay.
what happens is there's several reasons. One is they're controlling the timing of when that comes through. One is, it's like, I like baseball, so I use baseball metaphors. I'm in the outfield and they're hitting high flies at me, and some are going to whiz right by me and I miss it. Or some,
Ah,
I drop. So the medium could miss that one thing. You have to hear that special word. Another one is, it's not that important to them right now. There's other stuff they want to say first and get that through.
hmm.
And this is the big kicker. Are you ready for this? Sometimes you never get that one thing you wanted to hear because it's a moving target for you. As the sitter, the person getting the
Yes,
reading, they'll say, well, I had to hear XYZ and I finally got it. And 3 days later, I'm not sure. Maybe if they
yep,
say ABC, then I'll believe it. And so then they start getting readings, 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 and become dependent. And I say kind of
absolutely.
strung out on mediums. It's almost like chronic
Yep,
pain, and that takes the bank account down, that takes your personal growth down,
yes.
takes your frequency down because you're looking outside, outside, outside. If you're going to look outside of yourself, be looking for signs.
You are absolutely right about that because I did not bring her hairbrush with me, even thinking that that would be any evidence or anything. I had just started bringing that with me to educational experiences and galleries. And truly, it was because it was full of her hair. That's why
Yeah.
it was in a Ziploc bag. And it was just, I was bringing a part of her with me. That you're going to come down to this, we're going to listen to this lady, this guy, we're going to listen to them together, that kind of a thing. And it was not even remotely in my mind during that reading until he said she wants you to come up here and brush her hair.
And when you are not so needy to hear one certain thing, then it's a little treat when it comes in.
Yeah. Yeah, it was beyond a treat. I mean, it was just like it took my breath away. So,
What is the main thing that you want people to get from this book, this book you're writing now? I mean, the one that's coming
yeah.
next. This
Okay.
first one, I think we've pretty much identified that the newly grieving is the target audience, but anyone who's experienced grief can benefit, and they might want to get the book to give it to someone like, oh, what?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
the one you're working on next, as you collect all these stories of signs from other people, what do you want people to get from the one that's coming next?
Yeah. So I definitely, well, I mentioned to you earlier that, I want people to recognize that if you're going through grief, if you really loved someone, a child, a spouse, I mean, the death of a spouse, even a divorce, that is huge grief. I was talking to somebody yesterday and she said, I couldn't imagine losing one of my children. I couldn't imagine it. But I walked away from my marriage and I could relate to so much that was in here. She said, it's a process. And in the depth of my pain, even though I kind of knew, I knew a lot of people that were divorced. And I knew that years later they were doing okay. Sometimes they met somebody else, some of them didn't want to, whatever. But at the time, she's like, it was just, this is going to suck forever. This is just I'm never going to be better. And I really want people to know that you are going to grieve there. And, it's almost 11 years. There are times that I am in the bathroom on my knees. Something happened and it came out of nowhere, but I can pick myself back up after a little while, and really it's just because I love her so much and I miss her physical presence, or I saw something that a comedian that I know she would just die laughing, if we could have seen it together. I have to remind myself we saw it together. But I just want people to know that that suffering that you have early on, that feeling that I don't want to be here anymore, my life is over. Um, Without this child, and gosh, if it's an only child or if it's a 40-year marriage or something like that, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. And you are suffering hellaciously, and you want that suffering to end. And you're not always going to feel that way. You are always going to grieve, but you don't have to suffer. The suffering is optional. It's not optional early on. You've got to go through the process of it. It's a really, really hard thing to have someone be in your life every day and the love to be so palatable, and then it's gone.
It takes a while to realize it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when in your rightful time, you and your whole family, you're back on the other side where we're all from, where we will all return to our home there. What
Yeah.
do you want the people on Earth to say about you? What do you want your legacy to be?
What I'm trying to do now is, and so many people will say to me, like, there's no way to make meaning from their death. There's no way. I am not making meaning from my daughter's death. Her death never should have happened, but it happens. People die all the time. I'm making meaning from her life. Her life was so special. She was so special to me that I need to use the rest of the time that I have here to put my hand out, just like certain people did to me, and said to me, "You're suffering. Let me hold your hand. Let me believe for you until you can believe." And that's what I want to do. I like it. I love, even if I'm nothing more than an ear for somebody who says, my friends don't want to hear it anymore. They're done. They were here for a couple, I'm making everybody uncomfortable talking about my loved one, or whatever. Or my husband's on a different trajectory than me. He doesn't like to talk about her. Although then I say, if you want to spend this hour with me just talking about her, I'm all ears, you know.
I think I would distill what I just heard down to, first off, I did get the goosebumps. I think that you're a very good friend to all who grieve, and I think that's the legacy.
Aw, thank you. So
And
I'm trying.
yeah, yeah, thank you for that. How can people work with you?
They can go to my website, first of all, which is just my name. Now, on the cover of the book, it says Lisa M. Laniewski, but it's just lisalaniewski.com. And if they are in grief and they need grief support, it will tell them how to contact me on there. If they want to contribute any messages of their own, any God winks that they've gotten, and they want to contribute it, they can send it to me. There's another email on the website. They can send it there, and I'm going to consider everything to put together. They don't have to identify. I mean, I'd like them to identify themselves to me just so that I know I'm dealing with a real person, when I write back, but we don't have to put their name in or anything like that. I offer complimentary grief sessions. It's all on my website for how people can contact me. For some people early on, a Zoom meeting like this it's too much. It's really hard to maintain eye contact in
Okay.
the early stages. Some people, and they're not ready. We can do Messenger, we can do WhatsApp, we can do emails. It doesn't matter. I mean, I'll just take the lead from somebody else, and we'll go at their pace.
Lisa Laniewski, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Visit our website, carefreemedium.com, or find us on social media at Carefree Medium. Thanks for supporting Carefree and Conscious.